Good afternoon. It is Sunday, August 11th, 2013. This is Jason Horak reporting on the Dodge Daytona electric vehicle. We're here in Cape Girardeau, Missouri on the last day of the convention that has any official stuff going on. Most of the people are down at the raceway, and I'm not. They went down to Sikeston, which is a town about 32 miles south of here, and they're going to be drag racing and so forth on an actual real drag race strip that's certified by the North American Electric Vehicle Drag Racing Association, NEDRA. So anyway, I was hoping to participate in that, but due to many issues that I've had this week, I decided not to push my luck any further, and I'm just hanging out here at the hotel. Did go down to the shop and try to charge earlier, but had some trouble because my charger doesn't work. But that's a whole nother story. Anyway, I just wanted to show you one of the things that happened this week was the DC to DC converter fiasco. I had two 400 watt DC to DC converters mounted, one on the right hand side right about there and one on the left mounted over there. And so they were the little smaller converters. Each of them put out about 35 amps and a total of 400 watts. Those converters worked pretty well. Had them set up in parallel and they were happily chugging along. But what happened was, during a huge rainstorm, somehow the water had gotten it came down here and went up this lip and down onto the converter, which, okay, that happens, but so it rolled down the converter, which is kind of mounted at an angle, and somehow had gotten water inside the DC to DC converter. Now this is a sealed unit. It has a little IP 45 or 65 or something rating on the side, so figured it was appropriate for use in the vehicle and under the hood. Well, it turns out that it got water in it anyway, despite that, and caused a dead short in my pack. Now, what was interesting about that was, or maybe it was an intermittent short, I'm not really sure, because it blew up my first Manzanita PFC-50 charger. The IGBTs went in it just suddenly, and my theory is that it was the water in the DC to DC converter that did that damage. So the other issue was that the new charger that I replaced it with, I bought it from a guy named Brian here at the show. He was selling it for the swap meet kind of thing after the race day, and he had a whole bunch of these Manzanita PFC-50s in his car, so I bought the charger from him. And that charger is much more huge than the previous charger. Physically, it's just big, it weighs more, it takes up a lot of space. And ironically, for my size pack, which is about 200 volts, it puts out exactly the same amount of power as my PFC-40M did. So I get about 37 to 41. It sort of fluctuates going into the pack as it's going. So, however, I keep blowing fuses in that thing. I don't know why. I've gone through two of them so far, and I've checked all my connections. Everything looks solid. But the first one I blew when it had the DC to DC converter in there with the water in it, so that makes total sense. The second one was just today. I think it's blown. I don't know. The charger just isn't charging and refuses and is being difficult, so I'm not going to bother with it right now. I'm just going to deal with it when I get home. So I'll be driving the car relatively minimal for the next day or so while we're here in Cape. Anyway, so the other thing that we did was, this is the new DC to DC converter. This is also a Chinook, and it's actually the 800 watt unit. This whole section here is heatsink, so it's pretty beefy. If water should get in here on top of it, my theory is that it's going to run down the heatsink and off and just kind of fall down into the, up in there and not actually get into the converter. There is a little bit of a seam right here but it's kind of on an angle, and it's it would be very hard for water to actually build up and get down in there. So hopefully this one will last a little longer. It is beefier than the old converters. Basically the two that I had in here before would put out about 800 watts, just like, sorry, the bugs here are nasty, just like the one here. So I don't know, it is loud. We probably can't hear it over the road noise behind here, but and the cars that are driving by, but it makes kind of a high-pitched whine, which is probably the PWM frequency, as it's converting the voltage from, you know, the 200-ish pack voltage down. So that was exciting. Got that. Another expenditure of money this trip. So we've got a new charger, well, a new used charger. So that was about $1,400 for that, which is a really good deal, actually. A new one of those is about $3,000, a little over. So that one's from 2008, so it's, what, 5 years old? So that's whatever. And then this thing was, I think, a hair under $400. I got the special show discount because it was, they were doing like a 10% for anybody who was here. So that was nice, but yeah, so roughly $1,800 in parts there, plus the $200 that I spent a few days earlier for the other DC to DC converter that I blew up. So, and I think that blew up because of the water in its partner, and it just took it out. So, nothing but fun. Anyway, so you also might notice that there's a big styrofoam block in my pack. And that my little jumper cable here is not attached the same way as it used to be. Actually, what happened was this wire right here, this guy right here had loosened up just a hair, and with the dissimilar metals of the copper of the lug plus the aluminum of the positive terminal there, it had caused it to corrode very rapidly. Also with all the humidity around here, I'm sure that didn't help. When I was running on the drag strip yesterday, so pulling 1,000 amps through that with a little bit of corrosion caused all kinds of fun, and it basically ended up being creating a lot of heat. So the terminal had heated up so much that it was starting to literally melt the plastic on the top of the battery. So that was scary. I got that out of there, and you know, the battery itself is fine, but the terminal is kind of blackened and sunken in a little bit into the cell. So I won't be using that in my car anymore, even if the battery is just fine. But anyway, I might be doing some experimentation with that later. Look for it in a video near you. Anyway, this is about it for EVCON 2013. We'll have a big old dinner at Jack's house tonight, which ought to be fun. And then we'll be shipping the car back to Cortland and flying back ourselves. So, anyway, that's it for today. Have a wonderful evening and take care.